Hey, what's up, everybody? This is LA Night, and I can't sleep, and I don't feel well, so I figured to cheer myself up, I would do a review of something. But I actually hadn't picked out what I wanted to review when I started this podcast. So, give me 2 seconds to figure out what I'm gonna. We're gonna talk about Delirium. Yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about. Delirium by Lauren Oliver. Delirium is kind of old, relatively. I mean, it's not like it wasn't out when I was in high school or anything. I think it came out in like 2012, maybe, or something. I don't know. I wouldn't think it's more than 10 years old, like at all. I don't even think it's that old. And the basic premise is it came out when the Hunger Games got like super big. Okay, actually, yeah, so that would be about like 2010. When the Hunger Games got like super, super big, and all of those, what's the word? Starts with a D. Dystopian novels started coming out, like Blood Red Road and Divergent and Matched and Delirium and a bunch of other ones that I didn't read. I didn't read Blood Red Road either, but I read those other ones that I mentioned. So it came out during that time, and a lot of the dystopians that came out asked like a very specific question or presented like a very specific scenario. So like, for example, Divergent, I think like the tagline for Divergent is, what if one choice defined you, or something like that. I forget. Defined your future? Something. And it was talking about like, the faction test. And then like in Matched, it was the question it posed was, can you really be happy when you don't have free will? Which the answer is no. So Delirium, the like basic, if you boil it down to its basic components, the driving force behind the narrative is, what if being in love was illegal? And probably a bunch of disabled and queer people are laughing at this point because we already know what that's like. And probably anyone, over the age of 20 who's been in an interracial relationship, or as parents who have been in an interracial relationship. For context on that, for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, my dad lost his job when he started dating my mom. They transferred him to a new department. They couldn't actually kick him out because it was just starting to be illegal to fire black people for dating white people. But he lost the job that he had, and they moved him somewhere else in an attempt to get him to stop dating my mom. Obviously, it didn't work. So that's like the basic thing is, what if love was illegal? But it's not actually that simple. They like present it that way, but that's not really what it is. What it is that in the world of Delirium, intense emotion of any kind, anger, hatred, love that is romantic and not romantic, happiness, like a lot, like giddy happiness, any of those things is considered a sign of mental illness. And so, except that it's contagious, and so like everyone knows you can't like catch schizophrenia from like shaking a schizophrenic person's hand. Like everyone knows that, or they should. You can't catch bipolar from kissing a bipolar person. But in Delirium, people think it's not true, but people think that you can catch what was it? Amorata nervosa? Amora nervosa? Some Amorosa nervosa? I don't know. No, that rhymes, so it's probably not it. Anyway, they like give it like a weird, creepy, scary scientific name to scare the populace. But basically, people think that you can catch emotions if you're under 18 from invalids, people who refuse to get the procedure done that the government makes you do when you turn 18, where they basically kill the emotional center of your brain. Um, doesn't always work. Didn't work on the main character's mom. They did it to her like 4 times, and it still didn't work. It never worked. But so the main character is like, I don't want to get sick. I'm afraid of catching, the love plague or whatever. So she tries to hide like any intense emotions. She tries not to get angry or anything like that. Which, if anyone's read The Program by Suzanne Young, they know. And actually, like, it's just common sense. If you try to suppress your emotions, especially when you're a teenager or young adult, that's when your emotions like are super super intense compared to the rest of your life. After that, and trying to suppress that so that like people think you're like robot calm, that's not good for you at all. But Magdalena, the main character, she's like, I don't want to get sick. My mom was sick. She's being raised by her aunt and uncle at this point. She's like, I can't wait till I turn 18 because then I'm gonna get the procedure and then I'll be safe. And her best friend is like Hannah. Her best friend Hannah is like, yeah, safe. Now, if this book was being written today, probably what would have happened is that Hannah is like, yeah, safe, because she's in love with Lena. But that's not what happened in the book. Um, it's actually interesting because Hannah's like, I don't know if I want to get the procedure. And Lena's like, don't you want to be cured? And Lena's the one who ends up over the course of the book deciding she doesn't want the cure, and quote unquote, and Hannah's the one who ends up getting it, although it doesn't stick. But that's later in one of the sequels that it doesn't stick. So yeah, you turn 18 and you get the cure, and it's like it's a very small, like barely invasive brain surgery. That sounds terrible, barely invasive brain surgery. But like, they have, advanced technologies, so like it really isn't. They just basically like shoot a laser into this part of your brain and they fry it. Yay, I guess. Um but when before this, Lena and the other girls in her year. Oh, girls and boys are not allowed to go to school together. This is like a government mandated thing. So she goes to an all girls school and she's not allowed to be alone with a boy ever. Unless the boy has been cured, quote unquote, because then nothing can happen between them, supposedly. I mean, it turns out that one of the not good side effects of this, killing the emotional part of your brain is that it doesn't actually kill the emotional part of your brain. It just like warps it in weird ways a lot of the time. So some people really are just, zombies. Like her aunt and uncle, they it's almost like what people used to think antidepressants did to you. It used to be, and it still is in a lot of ways, that there's this stigma against antidepressants that if you take them, you're gonna like live your life in a fog for the rest of your life, and everything's gonna be muted and far away, like your emotions and your ability to enjoy things. And by the way, if you take antidepressants and that's what's happening, you're on the wrong antidepressants and you need to tell somebody. Just, that's your pro tip for this podcast. Antidepressants are not supposed to do that to you. So if they do, it means you're taking the wrong ones. Unfortunately, figuring out which antidepressants you're supposed to take is a learning process, and nobody likes it. Sincerely, someone who takes antidepressants. Anyway, so that's what the cure, quote unquote, is supposed to do to you. It like wraps you in this, to quote Lena, fog of well-being. So like you're basically content without feeling anything else other than contentment. Like, you might, instead of being angry, you might experience like mild irritation. Instead of being happy, you might just be like, oh, that's nice. You don't experience like sexual arousal or, actually, I, I just realized that this could be a little ace-phobic. I'm not sure. I'm not ace, so I don't know. I haven't heard anyone talking about this book being ace-phobic, because basically, like, the driving argument against the plot of, love is the plague, is let people feel how they want to feel, which is fairly inclusive if, like, you take it at face value. I don't know, I just thought of this, actually. You're witnessing my not so great epiphany. Yay! I'll have to talk to someone about that. But basically, like, so you don't experience, very strong sexual desire, although they do expect you to, like, actually make babies and give birth to babies, as opposed to other, dystopian novels like The Giver. I read The Giver and it was terrible. I mean, it was well written, but it was terrible. And, like, it's my roommate's favorite book, and I'm like, why? Also, it was a lot shorter than I thought it would be. But so it's not like in The Giver where, like, no one experiences sexual feelings because, like, the government drugs it away and you pick up babies from, like, the baby factory. They do expect you to, like, actually have sex and make babies, which is weird because it's like, okay, if you don't experience sexual desire or sexual arousal, like either of those things, and you have no interest in sex, like how would that go? I feel like that would be weird. But then, of course, if you don't care about anything, I guess it wouldn't be weird to you. It'd just be like, all right, time to do the dishes, time to take out the trash, time to make a baby, time to, feed the dog, or whatever. God, I cannot imagine living like that. I mean, when my depression is really bad, like, I don't care about things, but not that way. Like, it does not feel the same. It's not like I'm in a fog where I can't feel anything ever. I can at least experience, like, momentary, like, flashes of amusement or happiness or excitement when my depression is really bad, or if I've forgotten to take my meds. Like, even without my meds, I've got a little bit of something sometimes. I don't know. I can't imagine walking through life not being able to feel anything and not caring about the fact that you don't feel anything. Like, that's the weird thing, I guess, to me. I don't know. I'm probably rambling a little bit. I'm tired and can't sleep. Anyway, so the thing is, of course, because it's dystopian, so the government controls, like, every aspect of your life, right? They tell you, like, where you live, what school you go to, what your job's gonna be. And so there's a test at the beginning of the book where Lena has to, do, like, an oral presentation. Defend your thesis! Except she doesn't have a thesis. It's more just they're trying to figure out who they're gonna match her up with to be her boyfriend. And apparently, like, they get a choice of, like, 5 different guys. So it's different from Matched, where you have one person that the government sets you up with, and that's the end of that. In Delirium, you have a choice of 5 different dudes. And I'm assuming the dudes have a choice of 5 different girls. And so they do, like, actually encourage, like, sort of dating, but you have to be cured first before you can date. So it's more like, I don't know, a business meeting, maybe? I don't know. That sounds terrible. This whole thing sounds terrible. Not terribly written, just, like, a terrible way to live. But, I mean, obviously that's the point of dystopian novels. So she's doing her test, and then, like, she's actually bombing her test because her favorite play is Romeo and Juliet, and she's like, it's so beautiful and tragic. And they're like, the judges, who are all cured adults, are like, really? You think it's beautiful and tragic? Because it's really violent. Would you happen to be like a psychotic, violent person? And she's like, what? No. And like, it's this whole thing. Like, I think her answers are great. And the judges are like, you seem a little, nuts. And she's like, no, I'm normal. And they're like, maybe you're infected. And she's like, ah. But then randomly, like, a herd of cows comes marching through the building. And yes, you heard that right. A herd of cows. And it's part of a protest. So it's not like just some random, like, oh, look, cows. No, like, they were driven through the building. And she sees this boy, this black kid with red hair, who's like laughing off in the distance, and she's like, what the hell is he even doing? And then he like disappears, and she's like, what the hell was that? So luckily for her, because of the cows, that's such a weird statement. Luckily for her, because of the cows, she gets to retake her test, and she gives different answers and ends up passing, and she like is trying to get through. She graduates high school, like this is near the end of school, so she graduates high school. She's going to be 18 soon. She can't wait to get cured. And then she meets the boy who she saw at her test where the cows were. And she's like, oh my gosh, he makes me feel weird. I bet it's because of the whole thing with the cows. And then she's like, oh God, what if I'm getting sick? And he's like, you don't need to worry about getting sick because I've been cured. And he shows her the scar from the surgery, which is behind his ear. And so they start hanging out, and they become friends. And then she starts falling for him, but she doesn't realize she's falling for him. Oh dear. She doesn't realize that she is falling for him. Wow. My voice is all croaky all of a sudden. 1 second. Because she thinks he's been quote unquote cured, which means she can't fall in love with him because she can't catch love from him or whatever. Well, turns out that scar's a fake and he's actually part of the resistance. Of course he is. And so she like freaks out because she's like, oh God, I've been infected. Oh my God. And also she's like a total germaphobe. So she like carries hand sanitizer everywhere and like washes her hands 10 million times. And she's like, am I sick? Am I sick? Oh my God. So she ends up like running away and he's like, no, Lina, come back. And so they end up falling in love, you know, and she's like, okay, maybe love isn't so terrible, you know, maybe this is okay and I won't die because I really like this boy. His name's Alex. She's like, I really like Alex. No, I love Alex. And so they start sneaking out and dating on the, like, you know, she breaks curfew to see him and stuff because there's like a, you know, a government sanctioned curfew and things. But they eventually get caught. Oh, of course they do. And she's gonna get cured early, which they don't want to do that because apparently, if you do the procedure that quote unquote cures you before you turn 18, sometimes it can have really dramatic side effects and make you legitimately crazy, like mass shooter, you know, cuts up animals while they're still alive, boils kittens in acid crazy. And so they like try not to do that, but they're like, well, we have to cure her now because she's infected. So, you know, that. And so she manages to get away, and she and Alex like are gonna run off together, and then they get caught. And so he's like, here's what we're gonna do, because they're on his motorcycle, and they're like, I'm gonna drive my motorcycle into the electric fence, and then when it short circuits, we're gonna run, and you just keep running and don't look back, and I'll be right behind you. Well, of course he's not right behind her, because this is a trilogy, and this is the first book in the trilogy, and that's, you know, there's not enough drama for, you know, without, you know, something terrible happening to him. So she does look back, and he ends up getting shot like a gajillion times. And she's like, oh great, he's dead. And so she escapes, right? But she's like, life has no meaning anymore because he's dead. And that's the end of the book. Well, I mean, she goes looking for the resistance because she can't stay with her family anymore. So yeah, that's the how that story goes. So yeah, that's Delirium. Sorry, I had to pause right there because my roommate came in. So that's Delirium, and it's an interesting book, but like I mean it's not as books that are coming out now. It's hard to compare books that came out when YA was really starting to kick off in like 2008 through 2011, 2012 to the books that are coming out now. And like it seems silly because that was only like at most 7 to 10 years ago. But there is a huge difference now in the quality and complexity of a lot of the books that are coming out now. So, I'm not going to say like Delirium, the plot is fairly straightforward. There's not, a bazillion twists. Like, it's pretty obvious once she starts falling for Alex and keeps going like, I can't be infected because he's been cured. It's like, okay, well, obviously he's not been cured. Like, that's really, really gonna like smack you in the face. You don't even need to think about it that hard. And of course, once they start sneaking around, of course they're gonna get caught because that can't go on forever. Eventually, something bad's gonna happen. She's either gonna get cured or they're gonna get caught. And since she doesn't want to get cured now because she's in love, then obviously, they're all doomed. The thing that's really cool, though, about Delirium, and I didn't notice it the first time I read it, but I read the book twice. The thing that I didn't notice the first time, it's a retelling of Romeo and Juliet. Um, there's some things that are different, obviously. Like, there's no feuding families or anything. But, like, Alex and Lena, when they first meet and have their, like, actually meet versus see each other and have their first romantic interaction, it's at a party, which then gets broken up by the authorities and they have to, like, and Alex has to take off. Later, when she gets caught and her family's holding her prisoner, she basically gets the nurse character, who is her best friend, to go and contact him and let him know what's going on. There's the whole one of them thinks the other's dead. It's not a direct, like, point for point adaptation, but there's a lot in there that I was like, wait a minute. And that then also explains why, at the beginning, like, it's a little bit of, I don't know if it's foreshadowing per se, but, when Lena is like, yeah, my favorite play is Romeo and Juliet because reasons. And I'm like, Now, as I look back on it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure she did that on purpose. So yeah, I would recommend it to people. There are better books now, but what is that notification on my phone? But if you don't mind reading, oh, that's what that is. If you don't mind reading, books that from, the beginning of YA, the real beginning versus, like, quote unquote YA back in the 80s or whatever. If you don't mind those kinds of books, then, definitely, and if you like dystopians, then definitely check out Delirium. And, like, people kind of sometimes poop on Delirium a little bit because they're like, oh, well, love is the plague, whoopee, but the Hunger Games tackled class issues and poverty and government slavery and blah blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, all that stuff's in Delirium too. It's just like the main character has a different focus because she's not super poor like Katniss from the Hunger Games, but they do actually, like, if you pay attention, that stuff is also in there. It's just, filtered through this teenage girl's lens. That's what, what's the word? Not word, what's the phrase? Unreliable narrator. That's what, when you have a book that's in first person, unless the narrator is, like, God, then, and even then, depending on who's writing it, unless the narrator is, like, supposed to be God, the narrator's gonna be unreliable, and so you're gonna take things in through their eyes that you need to parse for yourself. Which is fine, you know, that's not a criticism. This is an observation. Yeah, I mean, there really isn't anything in the book that I didn't like. I thought the story made, like, at first I was like, this doesn't really make any sense. But that was, the first time I read the book was before I really accepted the fact that I had depression and it was affecting me in, like, a tangible, life-altering way. And once I started accepting that and dealing with it, like, the book made a lot more sense because of the kind of prejudice I noticed about people who are mentally ill from people who are not, and like from the government and stuff. And I was like, actually, this makes a lot more sense now. Anyway, so that's my, I don't know if, is this a review? I mean, it's more like tired rambling, but I guess you know, that counts as a review. Anyway, this is my review of Delirium by Lauren Oliver. You guys should go check it out. It's, you know, it's a YA classic. So it's not a classic, but it's a YA classic. And I liked it, you know, when I read it. It's sad, obviously, because it ends with, you know, Alex probably being dead. But, and, you know, and Lena's, like, totally devastated and has no support structure and she's all alone. But it's one in a trilogy, so obviously she's not going to stay that way. Like, the next two books are not going to be her, like, living as a hermit in a cave, you know, snarling like a feral wolf child anytime anybody gets close. So, yeah, thanks for listening. Press the like button if you love me, subscribe for more of me, and I will talk to you guys later. Remember, you are loved. Take that statement, embrace it, own it. You deserve the best. And also, where's my list? Shout out to my patrons. I'm not wearing my glasses, I just realized. Shout out to my patrons: Amanda, Cawti, Chelsea, Cynthia, Dia, Gwen, Lina, Lorien, Marian, Morgan, Shinuka, Sydney, and Tina. Thank you guys for helping me out. Oh, shoot, my notebook. For helping me out, because without you, I definitely would probably be homeless in a gutter somewhere. And I love you all. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye!